This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Hello and welcome to Horsing Around. I'm Dr. Chris Blevins at Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center, and today we're going to talk about heat and your horse. We always are concerned with us in heat advisories and when we have heat indices in the hundreds, but don't forget about your horse. We also talk about small animals and those kind of things, but again, your horse in the elements needs to be of a concern and need to make sure that we are with them, or at least know what we need to do to keep them cooled off or keep them from having a heat stress or heat stroke. Now, what would we do initially? It would be the same for you and I. Water, fresh water. I mean, that's kind of one of those things that's easy to remember, but again, sometimes when it's really hot, we may forget to go and check that on the horse. Maybe they'll go through a lot more water too. You have to remember that your horse, a standard size horse, 1,100-pound horse, could drink up to 20 gallons of water or more a day when it's really hot. So do you have that much water for each one of your horses every day, especially when it gets hot? It sure is something to think about. The other thing to think about for horses is as they commingle. You have to remember that water is one of those precious resources that a horse will guard. So a dominant horse could protect its water source and keep other horses from getting to that water tank. So make sure you know the dynamics of your horses if they're in groups, and you may need to have at least 2 or 3 other water sources for your horse in the same pen if that seems to happen. So again, knowing how much your horse is going to drink as far as water and having enough water sources is going to be important when it's really hot outside. The other thing is electrolytes. You know, you and I, we try to make sure we keep our electrolytes high, especially when we're sweating. Horses sweat too. They lose a lot of their electrolytes in their sweat, like salt, and that is something you need to keep in mind for your horse. Now, a horse, based on consumption, is usually just make sure they have a salt block available at all times, especially in the summer, because again, they're losing a lot of that salt in their sweat. Sometimes you can just add salt to their grain, but be careful, don't over add too much salt. Maybe just a tablespoon max is usually what's needed for a horse if you're going to add it to their grain. But the best thing to do is just a salt block, so they can just have access to it whenever they want it or crave salt. But there's other electrolytes too that they sure could be involved with. The other thing we need to remember is shade. Shade itself can actually take and drop the temperature by 10 to 20 degrees when it's really hot. So either have trees or access to barns or run-in barns that they could have with those things in different environments. In addition to those shades is airflow, fans. Kind of keep those things in mind too. Even when it's really humid, you got to have the wind to evaporate to cause for cooling. Now, if your horse is overheating, what will they show? Lethargy, sometimes colic. Take their temperature. If it's over 103.5 degrees Fahrenheit, they could have heat stress or heat exhaustion. So you probably need to get your veterinarian involved in those aspects and times. Again, if you got any other questions about your horse and heat, contact us here at the vet school or contact your veterinarian. I'm Dr. Chris Blevins for Horsing Around, and we'll see you around.
The new Better Horses Network is worldwide. Presented by Lucas Oil. Featuring worldwide radio and TV with iconic hosts like Al Dunning, Sharon Camarillo, Ernie Rodina, Lindy Birch, and Craig Cameron. With American Cowboy, Horse and Rider, Brushy Creek, Cavenders, and Ride TV. Worldwide radio and TV. The all-new Better Horses Network.